Awesome. Hey, everybody
Cool.
listening. It's Don here, and I'm here with Lori and with our guest, Sophie Thompson. Sophie's the founder of Virtual Speech, which, if you don't know, is one of the VR OGs. She started the company in 2016. She's been a pioneer both in the press and on the actual enterprise business side. And so we are honored to have her here to join us. Sophie, welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So since you and Lori both share a similar accent, I figured that we'd have Lori kick off the first question here.
Yeah, cool. So it'd be great to hear more about your early introduction to VR, because more of the typical story is from the game dev background, but we understand that's not your background. So how did you kind of step into VR development?
Yeah, well, yeah, it couldn't be more different really from a game dev background. So my undergraduate degree was actually in theology and religion, so a million miles apart. And then it was while I was studying for my master's in business that we came up with the idea of virtual speech. And we were originally the first VR app to overcome the fear of public speaking. And we created it because of our own fears of public speaking. And I mean, I had severe social anxiety at that point in my life. Like, I would ask my family and friends to order food in restaurants for me, or even going to Starbucks, I'd ask them to order my Frappuccino at that point. And I had a presentation coming up at university, and it was 3 months away, and I was already super nervous. And my co-founder Dom was working with virtual reality at Jaguar Land Rover in I was about to say in the American pronunciation, Jaguar Land Rover. And really it was his idea that VR could provide a psychologically safe place to practice a skill like public speaking, so that you can improve both your competence and, crucially, your confidence, because we're all just expected to know interpersonal skills and so-called soft skills, but actually they're very rarely taught, and when they are taught, they're very difficult to learn. So that's how we found ourselves creating this VR app, which was Virtual Speech. And we just created it for fun at first, and then within 6 months we had 100,000 downloads, which at that time was a big proportion of the VR market.
What medium was that via?
So that was released onto the likes of Google Cardboard, Gear VR.
Right.
So it was by that. It wasn't by
Gear
a
VR
Rift or
days.
anything. Yeah, it was a much easier entry point in terms of reaching the masses, because at that point Rift was like $3,000 or something.
Right. So I guess you start by solving your own problem effectively, and then go, oh, there's actually demand, there's a business here. And so that's kind of your 0 to 1 stage. At what point in that do you go, okay, we need to either start making sales, what does that look like, or we need to go and get funding, and what does that look like?
So I mean, one of the biggest turning points was when we were on the Boost VC accelerator out in San Mateo. That was when we basically had the opportunity to leave our jobs, or in my case, I've just finished uni, and actually try and make a go of it and think how we would monetize it. And we looked at various things. So one of them was about in-app purchases, a subscription model. But at that point in time, we were just a VR app for public speaking, and apps have a very low perceived value. So people don't like paying for them, basically. And so, we tried various routes, and it wasn't until 2 years ago now that we switched to more of a SaaS model. So I should mention actually that in that last few years, our product has expanded a lot, and now we're an online education platform. We have about 30 courses that are all focused on soft skills, and they blend e-learning with practice and training in VR. And we settled on a business model where it was a one-off payment for each course. But then 2 years ago, we changed to a monthly subscription or an annual subscription. And that has been a real game changer for us. It was like relaunching the platform. So in terms of numbers, this time last year there was 3 of us. We were only a team of 3, and then now there's 12 of us. So in just the last 12 months we've gone from 3 to 12 people, and that is largely in part to changing that business model 2 years ago.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that would be wicked to dig into, but I just want to backtrack a little bit to the Boost VC stuff. So
Yeah.
did they do your like pre-seed round post accelerator?
So again, I think our story is a bit atypical here. So we were on Boost VC in 2017. I hope I've got
With
that
the
right.
kind of Gear VR product
Yes,
offering.
with that version. So like the kind of bare bones version, if you like. And there was a big hype with VR in around like 2016. And we took the decision to not raise funding at that point in time because we'd heard of a few companies who had raised a lot of funding, but the market wasn't ready, so they couldn't sustain that level. So then they had to close the company down. So we made the active decision to grow in line with the market. So I mean, for example, we've over the last like 6-7 years, we've raised less than 100K US. Because all of our growth really has been bootstrapped from actually selling our product. So we, for example, like we haven't raised a seed round or anything at this point. It is perhaps something we're looking into just to accelerate that growth. But it was important for us to actually have a sustainable business model before we got to that point.
And any like, I'm assuming just based on the fact UK VR, I immediately think Innovate UK. Any grants?
Yes. So when I say that we've like had less than 100K US of funding, that includes an Innovate UK grant, for example.
That includes that. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's incredible. To scale it
yeah,
to
that is
12 people with no fundraising in VR. I mean, hats off. That is tough.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, we did receive like a small amount of funding, but yeah, overall it's less than 100K.
Just like one super quick sentence from you about like the grant process in terms of like how viable is that as an option for founders? Like, is that something that more people need to think about?
They're very tough to get. So we did a couple of applications, then you get feedback before we then applied a third time based on that other feedback. So they are very difficult to get, but if you do get them, they're very good for being able to like focus on an idea. So for example, when we got an Innovate UK grant, it meant that Dom could financially like quit his job and actually work on virtual speech full time. Like it opened up that flexibility for us. Because I mean, we both were really young, so like we didn't have like a lifetime of savings or anything to fall back on. So yeah, it's very difficult, but worth it if it happens. And it's not just the money, if you like. There's actually more to it than that as well, in terms of like having people there who you can call to for support.
Yeah, cool. So like you're at this point now where you're kind of beginning to get the bootstrap and you're still this kind of Gear VR product. How does, like, as the landscape of VR evolves, how do you evolve along with it? We noticed as well that you do non-VR stuff. Like, when does that come in? And how have you generally navigated the VR industry since 2016? Because there's been a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah. So in 2018 was when we had the realization that the market wasn't ready for a solely VR solution. And in all honesty, we also had the realization that VR isn't actually the best solution all the time. It's a very good tool to add to the toolbox, but it's not the only tool, for example, when it comes to learning and development. So that's when we started adding the e-learning component to the courses, so that then we could start to build out a catalogue of courses. So kind of like LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, but having active learning through VR instead. And yeah, I mean, we started selling to universities and enterprises. But yeah, we found that there was only a certain level of growth we could do, and you had to find new customers every month because they were doing a one-off purchase. So yeah, 2 years ago, we opened up the platform in general, which was quite scary because we were selling, say, our public speaking course for $250 per person for 12 months access. And then we changed to the...
That's is that the like a online 2D?
So that's both. So every course blends e-learning, like videos, articles, case studies, with practice.
As well as 3D.
Yeah,
so,
as well as
and if you don't have a VR headset, you can effectively just not do that component of the course, or?
Yes. So now, for example, we have it all on WebGL, so you can just do it through your browser. Obviously, it's not immersive, but you can. It doesn't exclude you if you don't have a headset.
Right. And how important is that, like, in terms of your feedback and touch point with the market? Do you find that people are coming to you because of the VR component, or is this VR component almost like a nice to have?
People come to us because of the VR component. So I mean, it's more like it's a nice to have the online version as well, and that in terms of our growth, that opens us up in terms of potential scalability, because at the moment, headsets are still the bottleneck, I would say, for the market. Is not just the price of headsets, because the price isn't that bad anymore. It's the logistics for an enterprise company to have to consider all of that. So it means that more people can access VR. Obviously, we know it's not proper VR, but from like a marketing point of view, other people understand it if you say like online VR. So yeah, but people do come to us actually for the VR, and then we say it is also available online if you've got employees who can't use headsets or who don't want to use headsets.
When you're building something, a company like this, how do you structure that team of 12? How does that break down on developers, VR, web design?
So about just under half the team are developers, most of whom are Unity developers. And then we built our own learning management system to host the courses on, so that you could get that feedback element and so on. And then the rest is split across sales, marketing, learning design.
What is that like for you personally, hiring that many people and, building out a team of technical and non-technical?
We've loved it. So as you probably know, that starting a company, like, it receives a lot of like a positive press, and it is great, but there's also like a kind of like darker side to it, where like it's quite lonely. Like sometimes, like if you're not feeling super motivated, it's hard to pick yourself up when you've not got a team of people around you. But yeah, I can honestly say, since we've had the team, like I've not had a single moment like that. Like we all work remotely, and like I've never felt lonely in the last couple of years or anything, but in the first couple of years it was tough, I would say. But now it's a lot easier, if you like, and that's a lot of that is to do with obviously our growth, but also having team members, and we're all part of something driving towards the same vision together, rather than just me and Dom on our own talking to people about VR and they don't know what we're talking about.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So on that sales side of things, I'm interested to dig in here, because like a lot of VCs we talk to, when they talk about enterprise VR, like, because a lot of people come from this game dev background, they're sometimes weaker in that enterprise sales, and obviously that's like the foundation of the business. Like, can you just talk about your experience in selling VR products or into large enterprises, basically?
Yeah, so I would say things are very different the last 2 years compared to like the first few years. So the first few years we spent a lot of time educating people about VR in general, and then we talk about virtual speech. Whereas now people have an understanding of VR, the benefits of VR, why they'd use VR in training. So there's less of that like consulting approach to it. I think we are, well, I was about to say very fortunate. We've intentionally worked hard towards this, that our leads are all inbound, so we don't do any like paid advertising or anything. So when people come to us, there's already that baseline understanding of VR, why they've come to us. But having said that, I know that we will have to start doing some more outbound marketing, and then that is probably looks quite different. But I think it's about focusing on what virtual reality or virtual speech can do for people from a learning point of view, rather from a tech point of view. I think it's very easy when in any software to sell the tech and sell the features and forget that actually the reason they're buying it now that we're past the metaverse hype, the reason that they're buying it is to improve learning outcomes. Yeah. It's not because they think virtual reality is cool, because frankly they don't. They want to make sure that there's learning outcomes, and then think, do I want to undergo this logistical challenge of the headsets and so on?
Right. And have you seen yourself, like, I guess, post that kind of 2021 zero interest rate phenomenon, move to more towards this, like, pushing the 2D side of things as that's developed, or is it kind of still the same pitch? It just happens to be there's more choice now, VR 2D.
Yeah, there's more choice now. So I mean, we still mostly talk about VR and recently integrating generative AI, for example, and it's more that having the 2D option is just something else that they to consider. If, for example, they want to start a pilot with the 2D option and then switch to 3D, they can use the 2D as almost like a stepping stone into testing that demand while they spend time figuring out about procuring headsets, where they're going to keep the headsets, what they're supposed to them, and so on.
Yeah, that's really cool, because then you can kind of interact with the customer before they know all the answers about the headsets, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the B2B side, but you also kind of have this general B2C side with just like Quest distribution, and like this is a huge pain point for VR studios all over the world, like in terms of the transition from, should I go on App Lab, do I not go on App Lab, do I go straight to Quest Store, like the headaches of going through the Quest Store. As far as I'm aware, you guys went to App Lab in 2021, right? And then in the last quarter you just got onto the main store, is that correct?
Yeah,
so it's almost been like a 2-year journey from App Lab to Quest Store. It'd be wicked just to hear you talk about that, like how that experience is, and just any insights there.
So yeah, we were on App Lab very early on. I think once they announced it, we were on there within like 6 weeks. And to be honest, from a customer point of view, as long as they didn't have to sideload anymore, like they didn't really care if it was App Lab or not.
Right.
We'd occasionally get people who'd be like, oh, I've had this notification coming up saying XYZ, and we'd be like, no, just ignore it, it's okay. But yeah, the process for getting onto the main store was very long. So I mean, yeah, as you say, I don't know the dates that we were on App Lab, but if it was 2 years, it was 2 years. But there was a solid year of going through the process to get on. So it wasn't like our 6 weeks to get onto App Lab. It was like 12 months solid to get onto the store and go through lots of different approvals for things. Ultimately is definitely worth it. But yeah, it wasn't a quick process, but it's definitely worth it. And also it was worth it for improving our own user experience anyway. So now that we're on, like, say, like our Pico version is now better because we made the general app better to be able to get onto the official Quest store. So it was win-win all around there.
And I guess, like, maybe the difference for your specific product compared to maybe especially the gaming side of VR is that you don't live or die by that distribution of the Quest store. So like if you never got onto the Quest store, you'd still be making revenue through direct B2B, and even directing those B2B headset users to the App Lab link, which is maybe quite different from the search distribution that's offered by just being natively on the Quest store, right?
Yeah, I think it is different not being a gaming app. I mean, first of all, App Lab originally was just like, not App Lab, sorry, the official store was actually just gaming all round. It's not like once we were on the Quest store, for example, we got like 200,000 downloads. Everybody on Quest downloaded it. That's not what happened at all. Because our customers come from elsewhere, but it just makes it easier for them. And as you said, we do cater for individuals and direct to consumer as well, so it just makes it easier for them. We have a free version on there as well, so people can effectively use that as almost like a demo of the app. It doesn't actually have a lot of the functionality, but we know, for example, there's a lot of high schools who use the free version.
Just quickly in there, like, do you have any, it'd be cool if you could share anything around maybe metrics differences between App Lab and Quest, or just like any metrics you want to share. You don't have to share any.
I actually don't have any off the top of my head. I mean, I would share them if I did. I mean, we've only been on the main Quest store for maybe a month. Like, it's not been very long.
Have you noticed any difference with that and like general
Before.
traffic and stuff? Yeah.
We've noticed a slight difference, but it's also hard to tell in such a short period of time because of like the time of year it is as well. So, for example, we work with a lot of universities, and obviously they finished for the summer. So basically, since we've been on the official store, they've actually not been at university. And I mean, we see it with our web traffic as well. It dips in the summer because of the nature of what we do. So that's also why I'm not at the moment paying close attention to the metrics, because I don't think like the first month or 6 weeks is going to be a particularly good comparison to make. It will more be comparing that first 3 months this year compared to the same 3 months last year. So yeah, to be confirmed. I will come back to you when I have some metrics there.
It's a veteran answer, Sophie. It's very well, honestly, you're a masterclass in social entrepreneurship. Like, this is very, very cool what you've been able to do. It's not just a company that started to solve a real problem. That's for good. And by the way, you solved your problem very well. You are a fantastic speaker. But you've mentally been able to get into the founder mindset of follow the money. It's a business, and to be able to balance those two is something that I think we here venerate. It's a very impressive quality. So that's awesome. And I think for everybody listening, a lot of people do VR. It's risky, so they go venture. You're a great example that, hey, you can build a real business. You don't need the stress of venture. You don't need to raise $1 million. So I think that the listeners are really going to appreciate this, and like a lot of the stuff you said. We appreciate your time very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you want to say goodbye, and if anyone's interested to use your product, where they can find you? A little advertising.
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more, just go to virtualspeech.com and you will see our courses there. You can sign up for a 3-day free trial so that you can try it out. And yeah, that's it.
All right, everybody, signing off. Sophie, thank you very much for joining us. That was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.